All right, welcome one and all to another episode of Movie Swap here on Radio DePaul, Chicago's College Connection. It's a very, very exciting and a very personal, to me, episode of Movie Swap this week. I'm here, of course. I'm Garrett Neal. I'm here with my host, Mary Gay. Hello, Mary.
Hello, everyone.
And this week it was my choice. Well, of course, if it's your first time listening to Movie Swap, this is the show where each week one of us asks the other person to watch a movie that we're very passionate about and that the other person is less familiar with. This week, I got to pick the movie, and I picked King Kong, which is, I have like a top 5 of movies that like I couldn't pick out of those 5, like which is my favorite one. But, like King Kong, as far as like how much of an impact it's had on my life and my personality, it might be number one in like Garrett culture,
This explains a lot.
This is a movie that I have a lot of feelings towards. It's right up there with Shrek and the first Pirates of the Caribbean in terms of movies I've seen the most number of times.
And the only reason
What?
It's so long though.
But I just can't get enough of it, Mary. Every time I'm watching it, it's like for the first time.
Yeah.
Like I was like when I was watching it, I started taking notes, and then like an hour into it, I just like stopped because I was just like so enraptured and everything. But I also didn't feel like I needed to take notes because like I know this movie front and back. Like,
see, the moment we started it, and half because I had just gotten off of a 6-hour flight, and 2 because not a 6-hour flight, but 2 3-hour flights basically, and 2 because I just like the moment we started, I was like, I'm not going to be able to take notes for this movie. We're just gonna talk.
But yeah, it's fresh on your mind though, so you got it all up there. So yeah, this is the 2005 King Kong, directed by Peter Jackson. This was his first movie, coming hot off the success of Lord of the Rings. So at the time, there was a lot of expectations around this film. It was supposed to be a huge blockbuster, and it didn't really meet those expectations at the time. It did okay at the box office. Critically, it did fairly average, if you want to, like, I'm being generous there. I mean, it didn't do, like, horrible, but it was certainly not seen as something spectacular. And it's just kind of a film that exists, and it's kind of one of those films where like people be like, oh yeah, I think I remember seeing that one time, but it's not something that sticks around. It's of course most infamously has a runtime of like 2 hours and 45 minutes. Actually, I might have actually hit 3 hours. I'm not sure.
It's 3:07.
It's 3:07?
The non-extended is 3:07. That's the one I watched.
Okay, yeah, and there is an extended edition, which we might get into a little bit, but I think the extended edition is better. It does add some stuff that I think doesn't need to be there, but the 2 main scenes it adds, I think, are like 2 of the best scenes in the movie. And so they should have been in the theatrical cut. And there's a bunch of stuff that was in the theatrical cut that even as someone who loves the movie and finds something to appreciate in almost every scene except for one, there's definitely some stuff that could have been cut from this movie. But anyway, I love this film. I do feel like one story I always tell is that one time when I was visiting some family in San Diego back in 2005, we went on a family trip to the movie theater, and we were looking outside just like, oh, what do we want to see? And there were these 2 posters next to each other. One had a big lion on it, and one had a big gorilla on it. And the lion movie was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. And the other movie was King Kong. And I pushed so hard to see King Kong, but probably because I was like 8 or 7 at the time. My parents didn't want me to go see it. And so we saw Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I hated it. and I would see King Kong a few years later, and it was like the best thing I'd ever seen. And there was there was a long time where I had this huge grudge against The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe because it was the movie that prevented me from seeing one of my favorite movies of all time in theaters. I have since have grown some appreciation toward that film as well. But anyway, now that I spent all that time introducing this film, what were your kind of overall feelings, I guess?
So, from my experience with this movie, this was my first time watching it. Despite it having been on my movie list given to me by Garrett's sophomore year of high school. So it's been on my to watch list for quite some time and has not been watched. Because if we would ever watch movies together, it'd be like, I do not want to watch a 3-hour movie. But to be fair, half the time we wouldn't be able to watch a 3-hour movie because you go to bed at 10 p.m. and we'd start watching at 8. So that's true. I can blame you partially for that.
I like half those times, like I would just be like dead by the end of whatever we were watching.
Yeah, you'd be like, Mary, get out of my house. Yeah. So, I'm very happy to have finally watched it after hearing about it for so many years, and it's not what I expected.
And you haven't seen the the original King Kong,
no,
the 1930s.
I have never seen any version of King Kong. The really only preconceived notion I have of it was the like image of a blonde woman being held by the giant gorilla on top of the Empire State Building. That's kind of really
iconic image.
Yes, that's the iconic image. So now, for starters, I'm going to go through a list of some things I had for this movie. How dare you make me dislike Jack Black? That is not okay. Yeah. And for someone who loves Jack Black so much, you're like, Jack Black's in this movie. It's so great. Jack Black's my favorite. And I was like, oh, Jack Black would be like a cool character. And then, no, he is one of the, like, I don't think I've ever, like, truly hated a character for an entire movie like that. Like, he's so bad. So that was kind of a shock that Jack Black really wasn't. Role for him. Yeah, I honestly, I'm a big fan of like letting actors who are usually pigeonholed into certain roles kind of expand what they do. I just really don't think Jack Black was the right person for this role.
Oh, see, I think he was like perfect.
It was so distracting to me.
I can understand that. And I think a lot of people would agree with you. I think the reason he works for me is A, I love Jack Black. But B, I think because he is such an almost unredeemable, pretty much unredeemable capitalist monster in this film. Yeah. Like the only reason that I can understand that like he has his crew of people that like follow him around is because Jack Black gives him this like energy and this passion that I think is like I have never once questioned why are his cameraman and his sound man and his assistant so loyal to him.
That makes sense.
I like Jack, like he gives it that manic energy that Jack Black brings to his roles, you know, and so I can, that's why I like him in this role.
I do get that. I think there could have been some other actors though that didn't also have the like. I don't know. It just I was distracted by having Jack Black in that role personally, but I do get that, yes, you're right. He's a great actor and he has that amazing energy that is so unique that did add something to this role. I just personally was kind of more distracted by it. Was that Tom Hanks' son?
Colin Hanks.
Colin Hanks is Tom Hanks' son?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I just briefly saw Colin Hanks. I was like, this man looks a lot like a young Tom Hanks. Yeah. That was kind of fun. I've never seen him in anything, I don't think.
Yeah, he's good. I like him. I mean, it's tough because there's a lot of these side characters that like I really like and I love the performances, but they also didn't need to be in the movie as much as they were.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked the subplot of the blonde kid. What's his name?
Jimmy
Of Jimmy and the
Hayes,
and Hayes.
first mate.
I like that subplot, except Hayes always had these really like over the top dramatic scenes that I just kind of like laughed.
Yeah,
at.
we'll
like,
talk about that.
Yeah, I was like, oh. So, yeah, overall, and I know you. So you said before we watched it that there was like a lot of scenes on the ship that you thought could be cut.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the ship. I liked that part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
There's a part on the island. There's parts on the island that took me out of the movie so fast. I just was like, I could not. Handle it.
I mean, there's
like,
a couple.
Do you want me to talk about those now, or are we gonna go?
Well, no. I think we'll get there. Okay. Much quicker than the movie does. But so basically, like, this is King Kong. Yes. It's a remake of the 1933 version, which is, while definitely has some pretty noticeable differences, despite it, being made 70 years later, like some actual like story and character differences as well. It's a lot closer to that than the 1976 version is, most notably because this film does take place in 1933, which the original one also does, whereas the 76 version takes place in 76. And it mostly follows three main characters: Jack Black, who plays director Carl Denham, who is this kind of semi-successful director who has these grandiose aspirations of just being this auteur, who brings something that no one else has ever done before. And so he breaks away from, like, his producers are like, no, Carl, like, we're shutting you down. You can't make any more stuff because you're taking all of our money and we haven't gotten anything back from it. And he's like, whatever, one of his lines that I love, he's like, oh, I'm real good at crapping the crappers. And I'm like, that's a really stupid line, but I really like it. In the first like 30 minutes of this film, Carl Denham has some really bizarre lines of dialogue that I absolutely love. And so he gets his film going, but his star actress has dropped out of the film because she doesn't want to go on a boat ride to somewhere. And so he goes around New York and he finds Ann Darrow, who, of course, famous as the main human role in the original King Kong. And she is an actress who is recently out of work because it's the Depression and pretty much everyone's out of work. And she has no family, no friends, I guess, and nothing going for her. And so she's like, I'm going to go and I'm going to take life by the horns, and I'm going to do something. I'm going to go out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to go on this crazy voyage to go be in a movie. And
she thought she was going to Singapore.
Yeah, Carl does lie to her about that.
He thought she was going to Singapore.
And then the third character who gets introduced a little later is playwright Jack Driscoll, who Ann Darrow is a big fan of, and it's one of the main reasons why she agrees to go on this trip. Naomi Watts plays Ann Darrow, Adrian Brody plays Jack, and Jack ends up, once they get on the boat to go to Skull Island, Ann and Jack kind of hit it off. They become kind of a couple-ish thing, and of course they're not going to Singapore like Jack said they were going to. They go to Skull Island. They go to shore, and there's a group of indigenous people there, and they capture Anne. And so Jack convinces the crew of the ship to go and rescue Anne, and of course they go traipsing through the jungle as Kong has taken Anne because she's a tribute by the villagers to Kong, who they worship as their god or whatever. And eventually Jack gets to Anne and takes Anne all the way back to the village where Kong chases them, and then Carl captures Kong brings him back to New York, puts on a big show, it makes his money, he's going to be a star, but of course Kong breaks free, finds Anne, climbs up the Empire State Building, and they're calling the airplanes, who of course end up killing King Kong, and that's the movie.
Yeah. Look at that in like 2 minutes.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot going on, but we start out in New York, which this is trying to give a little bit of backstory to all of our characters that, you know, we don't really get in the original film. We don't really see Jack that much here. Jack isn't really a huge player until we get on the boat.
And he gets tricked to stay on the boat to finish the movie script.
Oh yeah,
Denim.
Classic scene. Denim. Or as Bruce Baxter says, Denham. Bruce is
I loved Baxter. I thought he was Bruce Baxter so much. He was such
He's
a
played
good
by Kyle Chandler, who is he's a great character actor. He's most known for he was in one of the lead roles in the TV show Friday Night Lights.
Okay.
But he's been in a bunch of stuff, and I love him in this role. He's one of, like, there are not like that many moments of like intentional comedy. But every time he shows up, it's just like something funny happens. And he's one of the many characters that gets introduced while we're on the boat that are like of semi-importance. There's him, there's Lumpy the cook, there's Choi, who's like the Lumpy's friend. He's there. He was a character,
the cook, played by Andy Serkis.
Yep.
Who also plays Kong, apparently.
Yeah.
Did not realize that, but
there's motion capture in a Peter Jackson movie.
Film. It's Andy Serkis. I feel bad about this also, but I just can't take Andy Serkis seriously if he's not like completely if he's not motion capture. Yeah.
Also, like Lumpy, like his character was just like so over the top. Like,
and he like,
I'm a mean sailor,
and like clearly squinted one eye more than the other. And that was his entire characterization for Lumpiness.
Yeah,
like, come on, Andy.
It was very funny.
All the amazing like things you can do with your body to create characters. Why can't you do that when you're like a human?
Yeah, well, like honestly, Lumpy doesn't have that much of a character. He's just a grizzled old sailor. And they have then we have Jimmy, who is played by Jamie Bell, who is in the most recent of the bad Fantastic Four films, and Hayes, who's the first mate, played by Evan Park, and Captain Anglehorn, who I forget the actor who plays him, but I like all these people, but it's on the so the scene that I hate most in the entire movie is when we're on the ship, and like most of the New York stuff I don't have much of a problem with. I think you could probably cut out like a minute or so, just taking pieces out here and there, but like most of it is like fine. Like we're just getting some backstory to Anne and Carl, which I appreciate. And I think a lot of those scenes are really funny. We do get some of these like weird melodramatic moments where like when Carl is talking to Anne in the diner and he's like, Jack Driscoll told me somewhere out there is a girl who was born to play this role. And then it like zooms in really close and like everything slows down. He's like,
zooms in this movie.
It was always going to be you. And I'm like, is that line supposed to like, it's obviously supposed to sound dramatic, but it has no like meaning or reference to anything. And like I love it because I'm so invested in everything in this movie, but like I understand like within the context of the film it's so random. And there's a lot of moments like that in this film that are trying to be really dramatic when there really doesn't seem to be a reason for it at all.
I'm excited to get to my favorite line of the entire movie.
Okay. I'm going to put in my brain, I have a guess of what it is, but we'll see because I think there's so many weird lines in this movie. We'll get there. So my least favorite scene in this film is like when they get on the boat, they stick like Anne's like super excited to meet Jack Driscoll. and there's like a 2-minute scene of her
Oh.
trying on dresses, and
yeah.
like doing that thing where she's like practicing what she's gonna say.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just like, it's such a waste of time, and it's not funny. It's just really cringy.
Yeah, I
and
agree.
like that's the only scene in the movie that I like. I will literally just like skip it every time because I hate it.
Because they had enough kind of actually funny cringe when she mistakes the whoever the sound
guy, Mike,
the sound guy for Jack Driscoll. That was like, I understood.
That's like, yeah.
But but you
didn't need
agree.
like 2 or 3 minute lead up to that where it's just like,
also
ugh.
just makes her look
it makes her look
like,
super ditzy, which like,
yeah,
throughout the, like, honestly, like,
sorry, I'm just gonna say, like, I think that was one of my like biggest overall, like, not issues, but like, I guess struggles with this movie as a whole was just, I could not pin down a tone or a character,
Yeah.
I think the only truly consistent character was Denham.
Yeah.
And like some of the side characters, but in terms of the main character, well, I guess Driscoll also was fairly consistent, but like, I just think the only truly consistent character of like the main was Denham.
Yeah. I mean, he's...
I think they kept trying to make Anne these different tropes to fit in with what was happening in the rest of the, like, at that time in the film, but then it just made her be this weird, like, inconsistent character.
That's interesting. I outside of this scene, I always felt that she behaved more or less as I would expect her character to, but
yeah, I just think they could have done more with her.
Yeah. I think
know.
that's possible. I mean, it's some of it I think is certainly like the limitations of the story.
Yeah.
I mean, I love some of the moments that she gets with Kong, and I mean, one of the reasons I love this movie so much is because of the relationship that they have and that they build. But so yeah, there's a lot of the boat. I mean, the boat for me is I mean, it's just like more backstory, and we get to meet all these side characters that like I love and enjoy, but none of them are really important to the plot.
Yeah.
Which is why every time, like, I feel like every time there's a scene that focuses on the side characters, it's just like everything slows down.
Well, see, I think that's partly like my thing with the movie. I found a lot of the side characters a lot more endearing and a lot more interesting than the main characters.
Yeah.
Like, I thought, like...
That's, yeah.
Like, I also, like, I mean, Hayes was, like... He was over dramatic. Like, I wish he had been... I wish he hadn't had those, like, weird monologues that were just, like, really over the top dramatic.
Because
I really liked his relationship with Jimmy. And I thought that was such an interesting, great kind of side story. But because he had such those, like, all those, instead of spending the time, like, having more engaging dialogue between the two of them, they spent it on the, like, weird monologues. So when he died, it didn't have as big of an impact as it could have if they had used that time more wisely, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, because, like, the time on the ship is supposed to get us to care about more of these people so that when they die, it's, like, a bigger deal. And it's like, to me, as much as I love them and I do think that they're interesting, it still never really does its job in terms of like you're saying, like when they die, like there aren't really that many. Although I was heartbroken when Hayes died in the first movie.
Yeah, no,
which,
that
like,
was
Hayes,
rough.
the one person to call like one black character in this film. Choi is the one Asian character, and that's two more people of color than the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy. So
True.
it's, in the grand scheme of things, not good. Compared to other Peter Jackson films, upgrade. Although, so we'll get to, I don't know, is there anything else you wanted to talk about on the ship?
Well, as a just sucker for any cute little romantic moments, I did like the Anne and Jack kind of relationship building. Like, I thought those scenes were cute. And I guess I get that, like, this kind of leads into more stuff with like Anne and Kong, but like the like extended eye contact scenes I felt took up so much space in this movie. First with like Anne and Jack, and then with Anne and Kong. It's just like, I appreciate seeing this interesting relationship develop between Anne and Kong, and like her caring about this creature and understanding him and that he's so lonely and stuff. But I think that could have been just as powerful without these really weird, like 2-minute long eye contact zoom scenes.
I can understand that.
Those just kind of not, I don't know. I just thought they were unnecessary. Like, I think the only time the like silence and the switching back and forth between the faces was really effective. And I'm sorry for jumping around, but like,
that's all right.
I think the only time that was truly a really effective like scene was in Central Park in New York.
Yeah.
On the ice.
Yeah.
Like, that was a really cute scene, a really beautiful scene between the two of them, of just like seeing both of them laughing and like having this moment of peace in this really chaotic movie. But then all the other times, like, I felt more impact just seeing the two of them sitting together looking at the sunset than I ever did in any of the weird eye contact back and forth scenes. I just thought those were not necessary for developing that relationship.
Yeah, I can understand that. Jack is just like a really flat character for me in this film, because I mean, I haven't seen Adrian Brody in anything else, and I don't even necessarily think he does a bad job. Like, I understand his character, but it's just like, I feel like he says every line the exact same way. And I like, to me, the relationship he has with Anne is like, they were stuck on a boat together for like a couple months, and so like they decided to like hang out. And it's not like there was a draft of this script that I'm not making this up, like there was a draft in the script where at the end, like, Jack, when he comes up to the top of the Empire State Building to meet Anne there, like, he confesses his love for her. And I am so glad that got cut from the movie, because I think it just like, I just think it wouldn't have fit their relationship dynamic at all.
Yeah, I think, I'm glad. I was like, because I know that was his goal. Like, we got that was his goal, like running to the theater and all of that. But I thought actually that like, the way I read his character, like more in the quiet, in like the moments without dialogue, was like, I saw in his eyes like this understanding growing of the fact that this creature loved Anne also.
Yeah.
And like when he like just saw him picking up the random blonde women and just tossing them aside. I'm sorry, that was really funny, but like but like, he had this, like, I just saw like some of the most powerful moments of his personally was these like him just like realizing, watching this creature doing this, that like he was like understanding why Anne was so upset by what was happening, and like realizing what this creature was trying to accomplish. And then so I think having his final scene with Anne at the top of the Empire State Building, just hugging her because she just lost something she cared about. And like, if in the future they want to start like dating and like develop a relationship, that's perfect. I
that was not the place for it. Confessing is the confessing.
No, I'm also glad that didn't happen. At first I was like, oh, I want them together, but then like now thinking about that scene, like the fact that I read that as him like understanding what was going on finally, and just then going up there and being there for Anne during this loss, and then like whatever happens in the future, people can imagine what happens if they want to.
I think that's a great way to look at it. But that being said, we've kind of done exactly what we said we wouldn't do, and we've barely gotten to the island, and we've been recording for 30 minutes already. So we're gonna really zoom. We're gonna figure out what we're gonna do for this second half, but we're gonna take a quick break. But we'll be right back here on Movie Swap on Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection.
Wish you could bring Radio DePaul with you everywhere you go? Well, now you can with the Radio DePaul mobile app. Download this easy-to-use, free app from the App Store or Google Play to listen live. With the portability of a phone and the simplicity of pushing buttons, Radio DePaul satisfies all your audio needs straight from your pocket. From the main station to sports, news, and podcasts, your entertainment options are endless. Download now and try not to break your phone in excitement.
This message brought to you by Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection.
Please make your connection. This is forward to
the stop for Radio DePaul, your Chicago college connection.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Movie Swap. I am Garrett Neal, here with my co-host, Mary Gay.
Hello.
And we are continuing our discussion on Peter Jackson's King Kong, where we have just gotten to the island.
Skull Island.
Yeah. And so I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but I feel like we got to talk about the natives as they are referred to in the film, which in some ways less problematic than the other two versions of Kong because nobody is wearing gorilla masks, which is good, but in all other ways just bad, not good. And I have also seen the Broadway version of King Kong, and it wasn't a great show, but the one thing they got right is they just took the natives out of the movie, which I think they could have easily done because the natives never come back after this opening sequence where like at least like in the original Kong, like the natives like come back at the end of it, like they're around, whereas like here it's just like one scene, they capture Anne, and then it's like you just don't see him for the rest of the movie. Yeah. And in the Broadway version of Kong, there's like, you know what? They get there, they're walking through the jungle, and like Anne gets lost and trapped in some like, thick vines that like, or maybe are like carnivorous vines or something. And she screams, and Kong hears it and like comes, grabs her. So, okay,
perfect.
Like
lovely,
great.
Perfect. Love that. Love that for that version.
So that
the natives were uncomfy.
Very problematic. Very, very bad. So that happens. But Anne gets taken by Kong. Which I wanted to could be like a broader discussion of the film, but how did you feel about the CGI in this movie?
Of Kong?
Just of Kong, and then also other stuff.
I thought it was really good. I think I don't watch as many like CGI movies just in general, so I don't have a ton to compare it to necessarily. I thought Kong was really cool. I thought the animation of his face, like you could see emotion in his eyes. I thought the scars added a lot to it. I thought some of the other creatures on the island were very well done. The bugs were creepy. The bugs seemed a little like they were almost too big. I wish they had been slightly smaller. It just in terms of like I think it would have been creepier if it was more smaller ones than like the big ones, but like the bugs were cool. But no, I thought Kong was very well animated, and I think like this is like one thing I know I don't want to get too much into this, but like with the new Lion King, there's just no emotion in their faces where obviously it is able to be done. Yeah. So I mean, I think some of it is like apes are just like they got a little bit more going on. Than lions. True. But yeah, I mean, like they did. I love
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love this version of the movie so much, is because Kong is much more of a character in this film than he is in the 1933 version. Also, like, I don't really want to spoil that much about the 1933 version because you're probably going to go watch it. But, like, he's, like, straight up presented as the bad guy in that movie, which is kind of funny. And this one, he's so great. The one is, like, the Brontosaurus stampede. The effects in that scene are a little rough. And like that's a scene that people will show a lot in like compilations of bad CGI in big movies, which I understand because it does look bad. But I think outside of that, like everything else looks pretty darn good. Yeah,
and the island's beautiful.
Yeah, the island is really cool. And so they start going. So after Anne gets taken, like. Jack is like, okay, like we need to go back to the island. They've taken Anne, and so Anglehorn's like, all right, you got 24 hours. So he's like, you got 24 hours, and like half the crew goes. So Jimmy goes, Hayes goes, Lumpy goes, Choi goes, you know, and Jack's like, hey, come on, like bring Cam or not Carl, Jack Black.
Jack Black, yes.
They bring the camera, you know. In the extended version, right when they get to the island, they have a fight with a Triceratops. Whereas when you cut that out, it actually takes a while before we get to like the first action scene. Because the first thing is like we just see them walk and there's like a boneyard that they get to. And then we see Kong like running through the woods with Anne. And then...
it's incredibly painful.
Oh, yeah. Oh, like, ugh. And then like the... next real scene we get is like Anne is doing like dances for Kong, and Kong starts laughing because he thinks it's really funny when Anne falls over. And this is like where like we're starting to get like this relationship where like Anne has tried to run away a few times and Kong has stopped that, and so now she's like entertaining him and she's like, I'm willing to, you know, do this because like I don't want to die. Yeah. And then Kong keeps pushing her over, and then eventually she slaps his finger and says, no. And Kong's like, excuse me? Like are you, you know, and he throws this temper tantrum that just, it shows like he's just this dumb kid, and he throws this rock up on a cliff. And then the rock tumbles down and it hits him on the head, and he gets and it's just like, oh, like as someone who like I used to get really mad a lot when I was a kid, and like if you've ever been mad and like you hit something or like you throw or like and you hurt yourself with your own stupidity, then it just like it really makes you sit back and like, what am I even doing? And Kong, like, as soon as he gets hit on the head with the rock, he's like, oh, man. And then he just, like, goes away. And, like, and so then Anne's like, okay, like, I guess I'm just gonna leave. And so she does. Until she gets attacked by some V-Rexes is what they're technically called. But they're essentially just T-Rexes that are big. And this is like, I'm pretty sure in between this we get the Brontosaurus chase, which is preceded by my favorite line in the whole movie. It's like, so they get to this big canyon, and you know, so of course like Carl's a jerk and he goes off and he's like, hey, Bruce Baxter, who's like the actor guy, is like, come here, we're gonna go off and film somewhere. And then Jack Driscoll finds this big footprint.
Wait, no, this is my favorite line of the whole movie too. And so Lumpy sees it, and like all the sailors are gathering around, and like Lumpy, because he's like the old grizzled experienced sailor, he's like, there's only one creature capable of making a footprint of that size. The abominable snowman. And it's so dumb. And it's like, and my favorite part is that nobody has any reaction to this. Like everyone's just like,
okay. And it's like they're in the middle of this like tropical island.
It's my turn to talk about what I have issues with on this island. I hated the dinosaurs.
What?
I hated that.
Like the brontosaurus, the brontosaurus ones, or like all the dinosaurs?
Kind of all of them, but mostly the brontosaurus ones. Look, I get what they were trying to do. I just I don't know why. I don't know what it was. But when they came in and then there was a bunch of brontosauri, I don't know. I was just like, what? Like, you're on this magic tropical island.
It's not magic, okay? It's not magic.
Like, kind of is. Like, this insane island with this mythical creature on it. Like, you have all of the, like, freedom in the world to design
I see where you're going.
These creature, like, to design whatever creatures you want. Sure, they can be big old reptiles that are maybe dinosaur looking, but using like known stereotypical depictions of dinosaurs, I think was super lazy. And just I just only could think of Jurassic Park during those times. I just thought like, I was like, you have so much creative freedom in this story. Like, and I like the weird, like kind of lower to the ground alligator, like Komodo dragon looking things. Like maybe those were a type of dinosaur I just didn't recognize, but I think like those were cool. I thought the scene with Kong fighting off the 3 giant like reptiles, because I didn't think they looked that much like T-Rexes. I thought they like looked different enough that wasn't as distracting to me. But like, I just, something about those brontosauruses, and maybe it's because that's almost exactly the same as the opening scene of Jurassic Park. Like
it's very similar.
A bunch of explorers
get, like, the
coming
shot
in
of the big field.
Of the big field with the brontosauruses, and then like velociraptors, like very specifically velociraptor. Like, I just felt like it just took me right out of the movie. I was like, I'm already focused and trying to accept and enjoy and like get connected to this massive gorilla, like this massive creature that doesn't actually exist. And now there's dinosaurs just randomly there that serve no purpose. Like, the fact they're dinosaurs doesn't do anything.
That's really interesting.
It bothered me for some reason. I just could not get over I think it was very specifically like the brontosaurus and velociraptors, because that whole chase scene just felt like Jurassic Park to me, and it felt like a different movie, and it also just felt unnecessary for the whole movie as a whole. Like, I think they could have completely cut that whole brontosaurus scene.
I think they probably could have, again, because I think that's also like the effects in that scene, I think, are the worst in the film to me. And I think that you probably could get away with cutting that, especially if you added in the 2 action scenes, because like the main reason to have that in there is that like you just need an action scene at some point to keep things going. And I think if you have the 2 ones from the extended edition, you could probably cut out that scene and it wouldn't really be a big deal. I definitely understand. Like, I think they could have done a lot more with the creatures. It's interesting because like this is one of those films where like you can get a book. I don't know how much it was at the time. Now it costs like $200 or something. But like there's like a huge book that has like all of the dinosaurs or all of the animals that they made up for this movie. And there's like a lot of really cool ones that like never show up. And I think this is there are several areas where I think this is the case. And this is one of them where Peter Jackson's dedication to the original film kind of holds him back, because he like you listen to any of the interviews or like he loves the original film, and he'd been trying to make a King Kong film since 1997. And the original King Kong is famous for having these fights with dinosaurs in it.
Oh. See, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to hear the perspective of somebody who was going in not knowing that, because there are probably plenty of people that do. But yeah, like there's a very iconic scene from the original King Kong where he fights this T-Rex essentially. Okay. And so that's like they have the big scene, like this time there's 3 of them, and this is the scene that I think like most stands out in this film, is this huge action scene where Kong's fighting 3 T-Rexes, and again it mirrors the original in the end where he like rips its mouth open. Like that's
when he ripped his tongue out, I was like,
with his teeth.
Oh,
that's
God.
so cool.
See, like that I liked. That felt like that was fun. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, they were T-Rexes, but that just looked like big, weird lizard creatures that, I don't know. There was just something about that brontosaurus. I think it was probably the brontosaurus scene mostly that, like,
yeah,
didn't do it for me or whatever. But, okay, good to know. But no, the 3 T-Rexes was really cool. And them getting tangled in the, like...
In the
vines was really fun. No, that was a very good action scene. And I did like that, but I did not like the dinosaurs overall.
Later, after the bug scene, he goes to like the top of his lair, which is like the top of this big mountain, and he's gassed, man. He's so tired, and he just sits down on top and looks out over the sunset. And this is where Anne like tries to entertain him and make him laugh, and Kong's just like, he's just out of it. But then she looks out at the sunset, and she shows him. It's beautiful, and she shows him like a hand symbol to say that it's beautiful. Yeah. And he just kind of like, okay, and he falls asleep, and he lets her sleep in his hand.
Yeah. But also like that scene, him taking her through his lair or whatever, you see all these skeletons of his family. Like he's the last one. And you just see how lonely and sad he is.
Yeah.
And he just wants this company. Yeah.
I think that's one of the really, really cool additions that this version made, where they're like, yeah, there used to be other ones.
That's an addition in this one that's not in the original?
Yeah. And I'm so interested to hear what you think after watching the original film. But yeah, and it's a beautiful, beautiful scene when they're looking out over the sunset. Yeah. It's one of my favorite shots in the movie. And then so after they fall asleep, Jack comes up there, and it's really another one of these stupid dramatic moments where like Anne and Jack are like slowly reaching, and like the minute their fingers touch each other, Kong wakes up.
No, literally, I was watching, I saw their hands reach in, and then I was just like 3, 2, 1. Oh, and his eyes open. I was like, I saw that one coming.
Yeah,
like,
it's so obvious and dramatic, but it's kind of fun. And so, but then like Kong gets attacked by these bats that live up in that cave too. And while he's distracted and fighting them, Jack and Anne hitch a ride on one.
On one of the bats, just eat themselves off the cliff on a bat. Like, good for them.
And they...
Kong is not happy.
Yeah,
is
understandably
not
mad.
Happy with Jack that comes back in New York.
Oh yeah,
he recognizes that man.
And so they get back, and of course, like the bridge isn't down, they can't get across, and they're like waiting, and we see on the other side Preston, like he's finally had, like he spent this whole movie like learning how much of a jerk Denham is, and he's finally had enough, and so he like cuts down the bridge and the rope holding the bridge up, and gets like whipped in the face by the rope. And it falls down, and Jack and Anne run in. Everyone's like retreating back to the lifeboats, and he's almost got, but then Anglehorn pulls out this like harpoon that like is just like, he hits Kong in the knee, and like that like really hurt Kong, and he like starts falling down. Meanwhile, Carl has like picked up a stray chloroform bottle and like climbs up on this cliff, and it's just like waits for the perfect moment and just nails Kong in the eyes. And it's like has a classic line. Soon you'll see his name up in lights on Broadway. Kong, the eighth wonder of the world, which is a classic moniker of King Kong. And then we're just get back to New York. And so Kong is strong. We get there. Okay, so here's some more of the scenes there have been several scenes that we glossed over because I didn't think they were important that I would cut from the film. But there's a couple here that I would definitely cut because we get, so the important part is Carl Denham is like introducing the King Kong show, and there's a couple of references here to like the natives in the original film, which are very problematic as well. They probably didn't need to have in there. And they use like the orchestra is playing music from the original film.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, there's a bunch of like little things like that. And then we also like Anne is doing some chorus line that like we don't really care about, and Jack is at this show that he wrote for Anne.
And the comedy.
Which I don't really care about, but okay. And so, but then, so yeah, because like they show that, and then they're just like Jack gets up and he walks into the theater where Kong is, and like they do this whole like reverse shot thing where we're like we see Anne getting ready for her show, and we're like supposed to assume it's because she's at the King Kong show where like Jack announces like, here's the bravest girl I've ever met, a girl from New York, Anne Darrow. And it's this person who's a very bad, she plays a very bad actor. She's not actually a bad actor. And Jack is like, because Preston's there too, and Preston and Carl Denham share some looks and so apparently it's like, oh, like Carl offered Anne all this money and she turned him down. It's like, okay, like that's great and you can show that, but we didn't need to see all the other stuff that was happening too. We do get another one of the lines that I like, which is like, again, it's supposed to be like this big dramatic thing, I think, and it doesn't really come off that way, but I still like it, where Preston's like, well, Carl was right. There is just a little bit of mystery left in this world, and everyone could have it for the price of the admission ticket. And Jack says, well, that's the thing you come to learn about Carl. His unending ability to destroy the things that he loves. And it's just like, it's a fun line. But of course, the people start taking pictures, and Kong doesn't like the bright lights.
Poor Kong is overwhelmed. And mad that this girl in front of him is not Anne.
Yeah. Oh, I love he gets this look of disgust, like when the girl looks up, he's like, what? He's like, ugh.
Ow. Ew, who are you?
But yeah, this is where like everyone's running out of the theater as Kong escapes, and Kong's breaking out, and Jack is just standing there, and then they make eye contact, and Kong's like, you. And then Jack like draws off Kong, and he's trying to like make him avoid people or something.
He takes the taxi, and the guy's just like, you can have it, dude.
He's all yours, buddy.
Here. And
it's like after that ape.
Like, Jack starts like, moving away from other people, and then Kong catches up to him and just bottle flips the taxi and knocks Jack out for a little while. And then,
and like that scene's really fun.
Very extended slow-mo reveal of Anne walking through the mist towards him, which could have been cut down to Anne just being there. And Kong,
and it's like, I really like the shot where it's like they finally meet again, and Kong's standing there and Anne's in front of him, but like it takes way too long for that to happen. And also, as much as I love the car chase with Jack, that probably could have been half as long.
Yes,
too.
Absolutely. And then this is when it goes to like the sweet scene in Central Park that gets all of a sudden very interrupted by a massive explosion right next to Kong that initiates the chase of him running through the streets and then up the Empire State Building. Final iconic.
Wait! There's one of my favorite parts of the movie where he's there before the planes come. It's just Anne and Kong sitting there peacefully, and Kong pounds on his chest. Oh, I thought you were going to go right to the planes.
No, he's climbing up the Empire State Building, and then they're sitting up there and they have another nice moment of peace where Kong does the beautiful symbol, and she looks out, and it's because he recognizes the sunrise, and and it's very sweet, and then the planes come.
And just like, I hate Peter Jackson for this, because I think it's done very well, because I swear every time I watch this, which some of this is just me, but it's just like, I feel like he's gonna get all of the planes just one time, because he's like so close. He takes out like 3 or 4 of them, and he's just like, every time he gets shot down like 3 times, and he just keeps getting up and he keeps taking out these planes, but he's just getting beat down slowly and slowly. And
it's so sad, because honestly, like, if you think about it, the moment they took him off that island, he was dead one way or another.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I love when Kong's like shot down for the last time, he's on the top of the Empire State Building, and it's just like his head is resting on the top, and he kind of reaches his hand out a little bit, and Anne like grabs his finger, and they do a close-up of Kong, and you can see the light leave his eyes,
and his pupils relax, and
his
pupils dilate.
Oh my god, it's so I really love the way they did that.
It was that was a very well done scene.
He slips off, and it ends with what was the most famous line from the original film, where Carl Denham says,
"Beauty
wasn't the planes, it was beauty killed the beast."
No, it was you jerk. It was you. It was greed. It was greed that killed the beast.
Yeah, and it's as I'm just gonna go into my closing thoughts here. I mean, obviously, this is a film that I really enjoy, and even all like this, I could complain about this film almost as much as I could praise it, but I still find something to appreciate in almost every aspect of it, and it just bothers me because I rewatched the original, and I just think that this version improves upon the original in so many ways, in terms of the characters and the story and the world that is Skull Island. And I just think that with a handful of changes, this could have been a really, really cool movie. And instead it's just kind of like a footnote in history. And
well, that's a lovely closing sentiment. I unfortunately do not have the same emotional connection to this film. I probably never will. I am very glad I watched it finally. I actually am very happy I've finally seen this like movie, and watching this has made me want to watch the earlier version or the first version. But I'd say it was a good use of 3 hours that I probably will not repeat. Yeah.
So I guess we got to do awards really quickly. I'm just going to give it my most influential,
Nice.
because of how it has affected me as a person.
I need to stop going last because mine are always really bad. I'm going to give the I don't have an award for how dare you make me hate Jack Black award.
That's fine. That
that's
works.
my award for this movie is how dare you make me hate Jack Black.
What are we watching next week, Mary?
All right, for our final show, I get to choose, and since Garrett chose one of his all-time favorite, most, like, I guess, influential movies, I chose my kind of all-time favorite, nostalgic, feel-good movie, The Princess Bride, to finish up.
A classic.
A classic.
Film.
And now, obviously, with this one, Garrett's seen it a bunch, too, and knows it pretty well, but I think it will still be a really good one to talk about.
It'll be very fun to talk about, for sure.
I'm very excited. All right. Thank you guys for listening.
Yeah. Come back next week and enjoy your Friday nights.